Yes! Hello, my beautiful friends, and welcome back to the live stream. We have a tremendous show planned this evening. We're talking about Democrats getting very nervous over the SAVE Act. We have one senator who says that if the SAVE Act is passed, they're not going to win an election essentially ever again. And then drops a big lie on top of that one. So we'll show you why and how she's lying, and then take a look at some of the other happenings as it relates to electoral integrity. We've got a whole slew of more illegal aliens to share with you who are in fact voting in our elections. We've got the FBI now escalating the Fulton County fraud probe, which we are excited about. And we've got some more efforts on birthright citizenship now percolating in the Senate, which we'll all debrief here today. And the president made a pretty big announcement that he's going to be doing a televised address later this week relating to the 2020 election and all of the fraud that we presume Bill Pulte at the DNI is now uncovering. And so we're going to be here for that one. We also then have some updates with the bad judges that are out there. We have one called Sparkle Sooknan, the dual citizen foreign-born judge who, as far as we know, still a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, now getting hit with an impeachment resolution. Finally hit the Congress docket. We'll take a look at what's inside on that one and see what else is happening in the case that she's presiding over. We know that she's trying to strike down, or has struck down, huge swaths of Trump's electoral integrity executive order. And we have a back and forth on that that's happening right now as she dukes it out with the Florida judge who said, put those provisions back in place. So updates there. And then to round out the show, we've got an ethics complaint filed against Judge Kagan, seated on the Supreme Court, refusing to recuse herself from a case on which she has no business hearing. All coming up in the next court term. And so we're going to have a beautiful stream here today. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully your weekend was outstanding and you are returning this week bursting full of energy. We're very glad that you're joining us. Let's confirm everything has connected, and it looks like it has. Eureka. That means we can go ahead and get started right here at the top. And so let's get into this one. Democrats now panicking. If the SAVE Act is passed, they say they'll never win another election because it's riddled with fraud. And the current system is set up to perpetuate their power, not actually be a reflective process that represents the will of the people, of course. But Breitbart News just shared this interesting short snippet from the former CIA agent called Alyssa Slotkin, now a senator out in Michigan. She's making stuff up about the SAVE Act. And we'll listen to this clip and then we'll take a look at the SAVE Act that is passed in the House of Representatives that we want to go over to the Senate and get ultimately passed there. Because you can see in the SAVE Act, it explains very clearly what documentary proof of citizenship actually means. Will a bunch of women who are married have to show up with their birth certificate every time they vote in an election? The answer, of course, is obviously no, but that's not what she said in this clip. Slotkin, according to Breitbart, falsely claims that the SAVE Act would disenfranchise all married women. You'd have to show your birth certificate at the polls if you have a married name. What? Where did she come up with that? Oh, her butt. That's exactly where it came from. And it stinks. Here is what she said at this event where she was talking to a bunch of SEALs clapping in the background. And you can hear just how excited they are about this stuff. They really, really don't want the system to change at all because it works for them. That's how they win. When they have very unpopular opinions and political positions, they just continue to say, as long as we can kick our opponents off the ballot or take away their licenses so no lawyers will represent them, or charge them with multiple felonies in various jurisdictions, all orchestrated by the Democratic Party, then we'll win in perpetuity. We also need to change the demographics of the country and then have everybody come in and give them a bunch of benefits and then have them vote in our elections illegally. So you get the story. Here's Slotkin out with her group of clapping Democrats.
The other thing that we blocked yesterday was the SAVE Act, right? Which was literally allow this administration rig our democracy so that it would be hard for any Democrat in any state to win any election.
Well,
and disenfranchise all married women in the meantime, by the way. It just, you have to show your birth certificate at the polls if you have a married name. The other thing.
okay, you would not need to do that. She's a liar. And you can see that very clearly in the actual SAVE Act that has passed in the House of Representatives. You see the definitions are not even mincing words. As used in this act, the term documentary proof of citizenship means with respect to an applicant for voter registration. So you go and you register one time, prove you're a citizen, and then you get the ballots in perpetuity. Any of the following. You could also just bring in a real ID compliant license. Which many people already have. All you need to do is have the new license. You go into the DMV or MVD or whatever your state calls it. You get a real ID, you're good. Or you could have a passport, or you could have an applicant's military ID card showing where your place of birth was, or a valid government photo ID card issued by federal, state, or tribal governments showing where you were actually born. Or another one, a valid government issued photo ID card issued by something else with one or more of the following, right? If it's not a real ID, then you can come in and bring your birth certificate. Then you can come in and supplement your record with other documents that will confirm you're actually a citizen. So it's pretty obvious that it's not just a birth certificate every time you show up to the poll. All you got to do is register one time. You could have a naturalization certificate. You could have an Indian card. All sorts of other provisions allow you to go vote. It's not disenfranchising all married women. It's a stupid argument. It's the same thing that Kamala Harris was doing when she said nobody could go get an ID. You can't even check, to be clear, according to their party and Kamala and the rest of them, you can't even check ID. Set aside citizenship completely. Whether or not you can validate somebody was actually born here or is a naturalized citizen, they don't even want to do, definitely don't want to do that, but they don't even want to check to validate that you are who you say you are without even considering citizenship. I'm Rob, I'm voting right now. This is my ballot. This is my name. This is my ID. It's a free-for-all. In fact, they want you to just vouch for people like you're coming in Minnesota. You can vouch for 8 people, all of them named Mohammed, and they can all vote in your election. So that's what the actual act says. And Rand Paul called her out. Another senator right next door to her said, you know, this talking point from the left is not only false, but it also paints women as incapable, which we all know is not the case. It's very anti-woman. Showing up to the polls to vote with an ID that proves you're an American citizen, whether you're married or not, is common sense. We need to pass the Save America Act. And so we'll have more on this because there are a bunch of illegal aliens voting in our elections. They said that wasn't happening. Then they said, okay, it is happening, but it's not a lot. Then, okay, it is a lot. But actually, it's something that we want to happen. And so we're going to pass state level referendums to enable illegal aliens to vote in places like Los Angeles. So while all this has been happening, we saw that over the weekend, Lindsey Graham passed away. May he rest in peace. And Trump is talking about this, seemingly a little bit nervous that Graham was going to help push the SAVE Act across the finish line. And now that we've got Mitch McConnell, who may or may not be alive, depending on how you interpret the photo with him and the newspaper clipping, we've got a 51 count majority in the Senate, which is very, very close. And so how do we get it through? Well, with 51, you can still nuke the filibuster, as the Democrats are already intimating that they are going to do. As soon as they get one single semblance of power, they'll be doing this. So we can do that and pass it, or we can just sit around, wait for them to do it, and then impose all of the alternative efforts to go the other direction for mass voter enfranchisement, for mass addition of states, for packing the Supreme Court, and every other hellscape policy that they want to unfurl across America. So here's the president over the weekend talking with this lady. I don't know why he calls her, but he did. Here's what they had to say.
Joining us, and my condolences to you.
Well, thank you. He's a tough one to lose. He was great. He was unique in every way, actually.
He was, Mr. President, and I know that we are all just absorbing this news. We are all in shock. Can you tell us, Mr. President,
It was shocking, yeah.
how you received this news and your immediate gut reaction when you heard it.
So what makes it even stranger is that I got a call last night sometime at, the early evening, maybe in the 7s, and he called and he said, we're all set for the Save America Act. He was pushing the Save America Act like crazy. He got back, said he just landed from Ukraine. I said, that's a long trip to make. He said, he sounded a little tired, but perfect, but a little bit tired. Had a right to be. And he was a worker. He was really a worker. But he sounded great, actually. But he actually said he was tired. But he wanted to pass the Save America Act. And I said, well, we're going to get it done, Lindsey. We're going to get it done. I'll see you soon. We thought maybe we might even meet today. And then that was it. And that was, very around the time. It couldn't have been much longer. It could have been his last call. I don't know exactly, but I got a message about 1 o'clock in the morning from one of the people at his office that he had passed away. I said, I just can't believe it. He was like a member of the family to me. It's very tough, actually. It's amazing.
Mr. President,
He was such an advocate. He was, if he wanted to get something, and he had a unique ability. He was able to deal with Democrats and Republicans. If I had a problem, a real problem, I wouldn't often ask. But if I had a problem with a Democrat, he could work it out. He was a great politician, actually.
All right, so do it for Lindsey Graham. Call it the Lindsey Graham Save America Act. I'm totally happy with that. Call it whatever you want, but they can pass it. And now we've seen that the person to be replacing Lindsey Graham has been announced, and it will be his sister, who he adopted when he was a young man after both of their parents passed away. I believe father also died as a result of a heart problem. And now she takes the podium after the governor announces that she will be the interim senator from South Carolina. Here's how this went down today.
Great idea. And I'm sure that everyone here does as well. Darlene, little sister, come forward, please.
Thank you, Governor, and just bear with me as I try to get through this. But first, I just want to say one thing I've never heard Lindsey described as is irresistible. So, okay, we'll just start with that. But first, I would like to thank everyone who has called and reached out over the past couple of days. I can't tell you how much it's meant to me and our family. I know Lindsey was loved and respected by many, and I greatly appreciate the memories and even the funny stories that have been shared. These shared experiences, along with our faith, have gotten us through these past 2 very difficult days. Next, I want to thank the governor for selecting me to serve the remainder of Lindsey's term. It is such an honor. Lindsey has always been there for me, and now I will be there for him. My brother was the most amazing person, outstanding leader, and just a genuinely good man. He was kind and considerate and loved by his family dearly.
All right, so she'll be in the Senate. Hopefully another vote for the SAVE Act, and we can push that thing through. They always tell us that we don't really need it. There is no problem at all in America's elections. All we want to do is just get mass voter enfranchisement, even if that means a couple of illegal aliens vote here and there. Problem is, there are a lot of them voting in elections in margins that could be dispositive, which may be the reason why Trump will be making an announcement coming up very soon this week to talk about newly declassified and newly disclosed information. But our friends over at Just the News says, there is additional evidence now mounting that non-citizens are hitting the voter rolls, are casting ballots, and the DOJ is speeding up the crackdown. This is a topic that we've been covering here a lot. We saw that even in Arizona, a Maricopa County recorder called Justin Heap, who just beat the crap out of the board of the supervisors out there to reclaim his rightfully due statutory power, has found that as he's inspected the Arizona voter rolls, he's found a percentage significant enough that maybe, 14, 15,000 all said and done, non-citizens are on the rolls, people who should not be voting. who, according to the statistical extrapolations, have voted if you were to do a full audit of the entire list. Meaning that in a 2020 election where the margin was less than 14 or 15,000, it could have been dispositive. Now, we'll see ultimately if we can trace evidence back down to say that that was the reason. But as we see, the thing that they say never happens, of course, does happen. They give us a couple of stories here. Some of these we've covered. Kansas mayor, born in Mexico, voted. Filipino senior citizen living in Hawaii, voted. 2 Pakistani men residing in New Jersey, voted. Aussie in Louisiana. Chinese student studying in Michigan. All have one thing in common. What is it? Jeopardy theme song. Each has been charged in the last year with illegally voting in U.S. federal elections as foreigners. Now there's a sudden wave of Trump prosecutions that are underway. And this used to be a crime that was amongst the rarest in the federal court system because nobody prosecuted it. Nobody cared. The Trump DOJ has now secured about 24 non-citizen voting arrests, prosecutions, or convictions in just the last few months alone, with another 90 more cases under investigation. And these are crimes. They take the same amount of resources as any other crime, which means a lot. All 50 states were sent notices this month. We will prosecute you if you allow non-citizens to vote. And they are very nervous about that. Adrian Fontes, as we talked about last week, was saying, I don't even check the list. It's not my responsibility. Go yell at the county recorders, not me. Somebody from the DOJ said it isn't just bad policy to let non-citizens vote. It's actually a crime. And this DOJ will be prosecuting that crime if these election officials have been informed that they are and have non-citizens on their rolls and they enable them to go vote. Harmeet Dillon said that when she talked to Just the News. DOJ officials have also found 3 major problems in policing states' voter rolls. Hundreds of thousands of dead people are still eligible to vote. And in states that do mass voter mailing, universal mail-in balloting, they just hand out the ballots to everybody and they don't actually maintain their lists. We saw this in California. Shirley Weber, a Judicial Watch suing them to say you have to clean your lists under federal law, not doing it, which means, according to Judicial Watch's lawsuit, 800,000 ghost voters are receiving ballots like this. Then you just have to deploy the harvesters to go get them all and turn them back in. Tens of thousands of illegal aliens on the rolls. And scores of foreigners have gone beyond registering to vote, actually, in fact, voting in federal elections. And the New Jersey GOP also confirmed the same. They made public records requests. We covered this last week, where they said, we've identified people who are not citizens who are flagging themselves. They're going through their naturalization process to become full-blown citizens. And they're asked on their N400, if you ever voted in an election, they say, I think I have, actually. So they go back and pop their heads up in New Jersey like good people and say, I didn't know any better. Take me off the list. I want to become a citizen. But that's only the people who've self-selected. The people who are voting illegally and continuing to do that are not going to do that. Dillon, of course, is escalating this. She said, we are trying to empty an ocean with a teaspoon. Yeah. Because there isn't a culture of U.S. attorneys going after these, and they've ignored it forever. That's changing with the sudden explosion of cases now. Just before the big 250, 3 U.S. non-citizens in Florida also confessed to knowingly voting. Federal law requires voters to actually be American. And the 3 people in Florida, one from Cuba, one from Haiti, and a third from Brazil, voted in 2020. They voted in 2024 after becoming a lawful permanent resident. They voted once again in federal elections. Now, every time one of them votes, one of our votes is stolen from us. It cancels it out. It dilutes the very foundation of the entire process. So now U.S. Attorney Jason Redding Quinones of Florida, he said federal law is clear. This is the same guy that is presumably heading up the grand conspiracy prosecution, which hopefully ensnares guys like John Brennan and James Clapper and the rest of them. They violated the law. Same thing in Hawaii. We've got a bunch of these stories queued up. Same thing in North Carolina. Another Canadian. He just got 2 months in prison. He made false claims about his voting going all the way back to 2004. Now, liberal organizations say, oh, this is all overblown. It's like 50 people. It's like 100 people. Who cares? Jocelyn Benson, though, has now been forced to admit that 15 credible cases of people are voting in their elections. Chinese student in Michigan also registered to vote and then cast a ballot. And what party do you think these people are voting for? Do you think they're voting for President Trump, who's going to be deploying policies that make it more difficult for non-Americans to become Americans? Probably not. These cases then caused Benson to adjust her messaging. She's the secretary from Michigan. And also, one of the conservative watchdog groups said that they found 400 non-citizens voting in 2024. You start to add all of these up. How many were voting in 2020? What was the margin of error in Georgia? About 11,700 votes. Similar number in Arizona. Judicial Watch said the same thing. Even in D.C., D.C. allowed 388 foreign nationals to vote in 24. Now, non-citizens can't do that. Another guy, Joe Ceballos, a Mexican national and former mayor of Coldwater, Kansas, recently ordered to report to detention after once again pleading guilty. A mayor. A non-citizen gets elected to be mayor of Coldwater, Kansas, and starts voting in elections. What are we doing? How did he become the mayor? He earlier this year pleaded guilty to 3 misdemeanor charges for voting without being a citizen. He said it was an honest mistake. I'm a permanent legal resident. And they think that, right? They think that if they are here, if they're on the list, they go into the MVD, they register everybody who gets a driver's license, you get something in the mail, you think, oh, I guess I'm good. If the government is giving me a ballot, I must be good. I must be able to go vote. And they do. The non-citizen registration and voting cases are expected to soar. Harmeet Dillon believes the total number of people who made it onto the voter rolls will grow into the hundreds of thousands. And I believe that. When the reviews of state voter rolls are completed. And that's a pretty small number, even 100,000. I mean, how many illegals are here? And you have to compound that and extrapolate that over 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, my entire life. Many blue and even some red states are fighting back in court. The dozen or so states that have cooperated have identified 20 to 30,000 non-citizens on their rolls from the red states, which is why the blues are so freaked. A much larger block of non-citizens is also expected to be found in the sanctuary states like New York, New Jersey, Illinois, and California, the bastion of sanctuary. So the DOJ push is now coming forward. We've got reluctant senators who don't want to pass Save America because in some cases, they're probably the beneficiaries of all this. Some congressional Republicans believe that Democrat resistance to legislation may be a sign of something more sinister. Yeah. Saying obviously political parties that want to cheat, they will do what they can to fight to prevent voter IDs, said Glenn Grothman from Wisconsin. And that's a problem that we have here. People are going to continue to feel that elections are not honest because why would people not want ID? You need it for drug prescriptions. You need it to get on an airplane. You need it to drive a car and so on and so forth. The only thing you don't need it for is voting. And there's fraud everywhere in America. Billions and trillions of dollars being stolen. We've got identity theft all over the country. Here, hire this company to protect your identity. Call us today. Everywhere you look, there's fraud, except elections. They're perfect. They're beyond reproach. And here are all the stories back to back. This one, former Kansas mayor, this guy, voted as a non-citizen, now going to ICE detention. Hawaii immigrant charged with voting illegally amid a Trump crackdown. Another one, 2 Pakistanis back in January, now charged, lying on their citizenship applications and more. And here's Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who is perhaps one of the most wretched Democrats in Congress at the moment. Debbie Wasserman Schultz. We'll play this for you because it's wild. She's fuming mad that we're getting rid of the Haitians. She said the Supreme Court decision to revoke TPS from law-abiding immigrants who are here temporarily, Debbie, is a direct result of a racist president. This is funny. She's so mad. Trump has been after Haitians since day one, and she's going to give us his highlight reel here in a minute. It's just great. Haitians deserve an extension. No. You've already gotten your extensions for about 15 years. Okay, we've had enough extensions. Temporary means temporary. So that means it's time to go home. And a real path to lawful status, which is really what they want. It's never temporary for them. It's always permanent. So I'll keep fighting until they get it. So listen to this. So she's next to some NBA player. I think she's also in Congress over here. And they've got this red-haired woman out here. It looks like they're standing in front of the Supreme Court. She published this over the weekend. And it's just great. She talks about Trump's greatest hits. Here they are.
It is very clear that this despicable, revolting Supreme Court decision is the direct manifestation of what happens when you elect a naked racist as president of the United States. Which country did this president refer to as a shithole country?
Haiti.
It was Haiti.
Yeah, well.
Which country's people in Springfield, Ohio, did he denigrate by suggesting that they eat cats? The people of the great nation of Haiti. This is a president who has been after
the great nation of Haiti. The great nation of Haiti. Okay, so that's what they're out there talking about. They want everybody to be here permanently. And it's just outstanding how upset they are about this because they want the entire fabric of the country to change. And they don't want anybody who they can rally around or who will rally around behind them to leave the country, even if it is temporary. It was never temporary. It was a giant scam. Perhaps the biggest giant scam, one of them of our entire time. Everybody's here temporarily, but not really. They're here permanently. And so you just have to eat it, America, because they've been here for so long, we can't send them back. And if it is the great nation of Haiti, then they should be thrilled and happy to return back to the great nation. Since our nation is so racist and we have a racist Supreme Court and a racist president and so on and so forth, why would they even want to be here? But that's their entire argument. Everything that they don't like is racist. They have no creativity outside of that. And honestly, that word has no meaning at all anymore. It's been totally diluted. Everything everywhere is a racist attack on somebody somehow for some mechanism. And it's inappropriate for the people who actually own this country to argue or contemplate how it's governed, lest you be a bigot. So we're pretty all sick of it. So while all this is happening, the FBI is now picking up steam. FBI agents fired after they refused to join in the 2020 election probe out there in Big Fanny Land in Fulton County, Georgia. And this one's curious because it's a husband and wife team. They're both gone. So that's perfect. They can go home and they can talk about this over dinner and commiserate amongst themselves. But now we've seen other reports that the FBI is now directing hundreds of analysts to go probe Georgia, very small margin, where illegal aliens voting or dead people voting or other people who've moved voting or duplicate and triplicate ballots that showed up in the records in 2020 are all capable of shifting the margin of victory, changing the outcome literally there in Georgia. It was only 11,700 votes, so it's a pretty small number. So hundreds came out to Georgia, and they've said 200 staffers are now going there in a surge, including 260 investigative analysts and other staff operations, making this whole thing a priority investigation. It is said that each of them is to conduct a check of an estimated 708 records by July 17th. So that is coming up this week. The memo doesn't describe the investigation, though people familiar with the matter who are speaking anonymously, leaking, to discuss internal decision-making say it's about Georgia 2020. FBI agents, as we talked about, already seized hundreds of ballots containing other documents. And that was the seizure of the pallets full of ballots case that we talked a lot about. And then, of course, the Democrat super lawyers came screeching into the court to say, give us our ballots back. Don't look at them. There are records. Even though one official in Georgia said, I don't even want those stupid files. Get them out of here. I'm going to make paper airplanes with them for all I care. No one cares. Then all of a sudden, once the DOJ and the FBI get their hands on it, 5-alarm fire meltdown across the entire nation. This is rigging our democracy. So now we've got hundreds of FBI agents going down there. Fulton County spokesperson declined to comment on this. The memo were first reported by MS Now. MS Now gets a bunch of these leaks, which is why we cover from them. Trump and his allies are, I would say, going to be vindicated about election fraud. And of course, this AP loser called Kate and Alana and Eric took 3 people to write this article. Are you out of your mind? Look at this crap. It's like 4 paragraphs, 5 paragraphs. Took 3 people from the AP to write that. Great job, everybody over there. So now some people do not want to be a part of that surge. And so husband and wife team has said, we object to this. Okay, good. Pack your bags. Get out of our office. We don't want you here anyways. 2 Atlanta-based FBI intelligence analysts were fired last week after refusing to participate in the Trump administration's investigation of Georgia 2020. 3 other leakers who also should be fired told MS Now, and they all leak it to this guy, Ken Delaney, who at least can write an article by himself. The analyst, a husband and wife, they can mark this down in their clip book. What do they call those books? Told colleagues that they did not believe the investigation was justified. And they said, oh, okay, no problem. The couple was then escorted out of their office. Here's a box, load it up. Don't touch your computer, and I'm going to stand here and watch as you put whatever you guys have in this box and get out of here. The FBI neither confirmed nor denied this. One FBI spokesperson responded to MS Now. They said, the FBI will always investigate credible allegations of matters related to federal elections, and every employee at this FBI is to uphold our mission and adhere to our standards, and any deviation will not be tolerated. As we know, about a week before, Cash dropped 260,000 intelligence analysts. Now it's about 258, which we can live with, on a priority investigation. Multiple sources says it was about Georgia and their 11,700 vote margin. Judge also issued search warrants. They got the pallets full of ballots. Supposedly, each agent down there is going to be making 708 record checks by July 17th. So it's not sure what they're examining. I think we have a pretty good idea. Multiply 258 by 708, whatever that number is. I'm going to guess that's a large amount of the ballots that were seized out of Fulton County. But FBI and other officials say it could be the ballots themselves. Ding, ding, ding. Great job there, Ken. One person familiar with the matter said the analyst in one of the offices was giving a spreadsheet of 175,000 names, along with dates of birth, and that they have been tasked to run those names through a commercial database to check whether the individuals are alive and to determine a current address for each one of them. Last week, a judge rejected another subpoena, which we talked about, saying, who do you think you are? The FBI? Why am I going to give you permission to go do your job and conduct a criminal investigation into mass election fraud? Under DOJ guidelines, the FBI may only conduct an investigation if there's a reasonable set of facts, multiple investigators. Oh, really? Multiple investigations? Do you mean like by Vic Reynolds, who was told by the governor, Brian Kemp, to stop the investigation, according to a sitting senator called David Perdue, to not investigate it anymore, all in a deposition articulated on the record? That investigation? Then when Vic Reynolds stopped the investigation and called it, what happened to him? He got promoted to a superior court judge by the very governor who ordered him to do the thing. Now he's a judge. Mark Warner, the ranking Democrat, criticized the investigation. He says this is a diversion of resources. Okay. And they, of course, diverted all of their resources after 2020 to go after anybody who even questioned the legitimacy of the election. They said that you are now an electoral conspiracy theorist and you're harmful and dangerous, as YouTube smeared us with that label, even though we are quite dangerous. But now this married couple can go cry harder. They'll probably get jobs at MS Now and can opine about democracy under attack. But while all this is happening, we also have another effort on birthright citizenship. Now, I'm waiting for this actual bill to hit the congressional docket. But the story broke today that one senator now, not just a House representative, called Jim Banks from Indiana, is going to be introducing legislation to end birthright citizenship in response to what the Supreme Court did to all of us in undermining American integrity, saying that they can do this under the Invaders Clause, saying a federal law can be passed by Congress to handle all of this. Banks told Fox News Digital that he plans to introduce the Citizenship Act as soon as the Senate opens up for business today. And I looked, it was not on the docket over at congress.gov, but when it's here, we'll read it. Kavanaugh, concurring in the judgment, said Congress can actually use the Constitution to prevent birthright citizenship from being passed on to people who even come into the country illegally. He said the bill would declare that any person who enters the U.S. without authorization or for the purpose of engaging in birth tourism is considered an invader, and amends the Immigration and Nationality Act to exclude the children of such invaders. And without touching any of the amendment process, he says there is another provision that we can use, which is the invasion provision in the Constitution, citing Wong Kim Ark and talking about enemies within. And so hopefully this thing comes very soon, and we'll read the whole thing. Yeah, Article 4, it requires, if you read it, the federal government to, quote, protect each state against invasion, while Congress Article 1 says that we can establish a uniform rule of naturalization. So we can kind of mix and mingle those two. The federal government has to protect against an invasion. We've been living through that my entire life until recently. And so we can use that in conjunction with the Article 1 powers to pass new legislation. Love the idea. And this will be a fun one to have passed and work its way back up to the Supreme Court. And then they can articulate why Congress can't even define what the word invasion means, even though Article 1 powers give them the authority to do that. So nice new development there. And we've got Jim Banks to explain more on that. But we also know that on Thursday, President Trump is coming out. He is going to give a national address. Many people were speculating that this was all about Iran or something. Turns out it's not. Jake Taylor, who reported on this, he's over at Politico or MS Now. He said, Trump's Thursday speech is now slated to address newly declassified intelligence reports that the White House asserts reveal plans by foreign nations to interfere in 2020. That's according to two White House officials granted anonymity to discuss internal plans. And we've long speculated that this was part of the equation, whether it's, Venezuela or Hugo Chavez or any of that stuff is something that remains to be seen. But we've talked about and covered other stories here where the Chinese were bringing in tens of thousands of IDs that actually worked through the port of entries in various states across America. Thousands and thousands of IDs. I think one state was Michigan, and they scanned it, pull it, turn it over, scan it. Doop, doop. It works. It validates because it's a real ID. And they've apparently also stolen via hacking the state lists. So while the states refuse to give the federal government their internal voter rolls, according to some reports, and I would bet this is true because the systems are a total joke, we know Jenna Griswold in Colorado posted the BIOS passwords for the voting machines on the internet. All right. So I would imagine that foreign countries, especially sophisticated actors, can go in and just take the list if they don't have somebody who's actually working for China in the secretary's offices. So they've got the list. All they do is go and create the fake IDs that are as legitimate as any ID that we have, referencing and indexing them to the official list, and the IDs work. They go and register a bunch of ballots. They get the ballots delivered. Boom, you need 11,000, 12,000. One state is flipped. You do that at scale, not even complicated for a nation state to do that. So on Thursday, we'll be hearing much more about that. And we've got Jim Banks explaining what we need to do to handle birthright citizenship, to handle this foreign influence, whether it's people coming here illegally, whether it's the Chinese or the Iranians or somebody else hacking our elections. We've got to get control of the entire process. Here's what Banks had to say on With Human Events, talking us through this.
There's so much at stake here. I mean, the Democrats flooded our country with tens of millions of illegals for this explicit purpose. So this underscores why mass deportations, deport every single illegal out of our country. It emphasizes how important that is. I think we've lost focus of that. And in so many ways, we've We've moved on to a lot of other issues, but we got to get back to the importance of the mass deportation effort that President Trump was elected specifically to engage to deport every single illegal, because we know that they are here to manipulate the system, use these loopholes, and change our country forever. So we have to mass deportations, deport every single one of them. And then secondly, Jack, it shows how important these Supreme Court justices are. We have to replace the bad ones with good ones. And we might have an opportunity even yet this year to replace one or two of the best Supreme Court justices that we have ever had with good ones who think just like they do. I mean, there was a fake news report from NPR earlier today that said that Justice Alito is retiring. They retracted it, but there is a chance that does happen, or that Justice Thomas, I wish Clarence Thomas could live forever. He's the greatest living human being, greatest living American that we have.
It's true.
Today in our country. I wish that he could live forever, but age is catching up with both of these guys. And we want to make sure that we get Supreme Court justices who think just like they do to replace them whenever that time comes, and then replace the bad ones with good ones. And then the third thing that we have to do, Jack, that's just as the most important thing that we can do between now and the end of the year is pass the Save America Act, but also pass legislation or a constitutional amendment to ban birthright citizenship. President Trump said already today that we can do it through simple legislation, not a constitutional amendment. I want to explore every single option that we have to ban birthright citizenship through the Congress. If the Supreme Court says that the president's ban is unconstitutional, then we should find a constitutional avenue to ban it, to stop it from happening with birthright tourism and some of these loopholes being exploited by foreigners. We got to do everything we can to stop it.
He's exactly right. And Clarence Thomas is just absolutely amazing. So hopefully we can find and figure out what happened in his genome and whether he's got 9 kids or something, so we can, continue on his excellence. But on Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern time, Trump will be revealing a speech to the nation on Thursday evening. Thank you for your attention to this matter, and it is presumably about election fraud. And so we're going to keep our eye on this one and much more. Thank you for joining and subscribing as we fix our elections here in America. All right, now let's talk about one judge who is working overtime to prevent election integrity in America. And it's this one right here. In fact, let me grab for us her actual image and Wikipedia bio, just so that we all know who we are talking about. But this is what we've got on this story. Impeachment resolution now filed against the foreign-born dual citizen judge called Sparkle Sooknan, who came into America and decided overnight that she's going to tell us about our Constitution and about electoral integrity and about democracy in America, while she has, so far as we know, never renounced her citizenship to her home country. Isn't that something? So now we see a brand new attempt to remove her. We've seen some other efforts like this, and we want accountability for our judges. This is Congress's check and balance. The president cannot remove the judges. The people cannot remove the judges. We know the Supreme Court won't do anything to any of them or reprimand them at all, because an internal reprimand from SCOTUS down below creates internal problems and legitimacy concerns for the public at large. So it is up to Congress to handle this. They have been so weak and ineffective over our lifetime that they've delegated their powers to independent agencies, and they've let the judiciary turn into this cancerous hellscape that is in control of the nation. So now, Sparkle Sooknan, who you see right here, who was born in San Fernando, Trinidad and Tobago, to parents of Indian descent, who came over here and was appointed by Joe Biden amongst a huge tranche of judges who are all foreign born, like Amir Ali, who was born in Canada, and Chutkan from Jamaica, and many others, all now taking over the American system of governance. And Sparkle has made it one of her highest priorities in recent litigation to stop the executive order that Trump initiated to actually create some citizenship checks using federal government resources that are already codified into law, and also reforming the Postal Service so that they're not accepting fraudulent mail-in ballots from non-citizens or dead people. She said he can't do any of that. And we're going to get an update on the litigation in the case because she was also backhanded legally by a Florida judge called T. Kent, who was born in America, who said that the SAVE database, not to be confused with the SAVE Act, can actually be used to validate benefits from the states to the federal government. One of those benefits is citizenship. And so there was a whole system in place that red states were using to check citizenship, and she just invalidated the entire thing across the entire country. She is a DC judge. She said the system, as it applies to everybody everywhere, is no longer allowed because of privacy rights for non-citizens under American law. So time to impeach her. We're happy to see an effort on this one brought to us courtesy of Abe Amadei from Arizona. And he said that he introduced the impeachment resolution. It has now finally hit the congressional docket. They said, we're now moving to remove her for abuse of her judicial authority. He said this judge abused her power. She issued an injunction that halted Trump's SAVE program, and she, quote, substituted the judgment of a single unelected judge for that duly elected executive branch. Okay, she says, I don't like the policy, so I will investigate some legal justification to invalidate the entire policy. Ultimately, it was about privacy rights and that the people who are getting checked are being checked illegally. The federal government can't use its already codified powers to do this. He said, this is egregious. This is an overreaching ruling. It blocks Trump's common sense effort to verify citizenship of those who want to vote in our elections. This is the final straw. This is a blatant and unlawful subversion of the president's executive authority and a direct assault on election integrity. Thank you, Abe. Judges who weaponize their bench to interfere with the president's constitutional duties must be held accountable. It's Congress's duty. We don't have a system of checks and balances if Congress just goes and cries into the ether about, oh, some judges are doing some bad things. You have to act. She should be hit with these by many more people than just Abe Amadei. And people should vote for this, and she should be impeached in the House. Maybe she cannot be removed in the Senate. Okay. But the point is, we want the record reflecting her abuse. Sooknan, who holds dual citizenship in the United States and Trinidad and Tobago, thank you, Abe, is an appointee to the bench of Joe Biden. Suki's ruling against the Trump administration prevents the government from assisting states, even the states that want the assistance, from doing their job to validate that only U.S. citizens are voting. And so Abe Amadei, in his resolution introducing the articles of impeachment, we'll read it, walks us through exactly what the basis for this is. And so now it has been submitted, and we'll get a latest update on the case itself. But you can see this is going over now to the House Judiciary Committee. So hopefully Jim Jordan will take it and read it and advance it, and they can have a vote on this to impeach her with haste. Here's what the actual resolution says. HRes 1421, impeaching Sparkle L. Sooknan for high crimes and misdemeanors, now released July 9th by Abe Amadei of Arizona, says, be it resolved here that Suki Sparkle of Judge of DC be impeached for high crimes and misdemeanors, saying she now is impeached if they actually vote on this and put it through. For the following reasons. These articles have now been exhibited by the House of Representatives of the United States of America for the following reasons under Article 1. In her conduct of the office of judge, Sparky has abused the power entrusted to her in that she's done the following. 1, she issued an injunction that halted Trump's SAVE program. She substituted the judgment of a single unelected judge, for which there is no ability to remove her, for that of a duly elected executive branch. Okay, the judiciary is not accountable to the people. The executive is. That's why we vote for them and don't vote for the judges. So her intervening is reprehensible. Through this extraordinary intervention, Judge Sparkle elevated personal, legal, and policy preferences above the constitutional powers of the president. As we know, Article 3 grants judges life tenure during good behavior. And good behavior means exactly that. You have to be a good judge, acting with the behavior of an honorable judge. Not lifetime immunity from accountability. And when judges repeatedly exceed their constitutional role and exercise power never even granted to them by the Constitution, they violate the spirit of the good behavior and that requirement, and they invite our scrutiny. He's dead right. Congress possesses both the authority and the obligation to check obligation. You see that? It is their obligation. If they're not checking the judiciary, they are failing as elected representatives. Simple as. No one else can check them. And this is an abuse. Failure to respond to judicial overreach risks normalizing the concentration of unchecked power in the hands of the unelected judges. Impeachment is a constitutional remedy designed to preserve the separation of powers and safeguard the authority entrusted to the elected branches of government. And Congress possesses both the authority and the obligation to check these abuses. Failure to respond to this overreach is a big problem, and we must act. And so in all of this, we are now voting on determining that Sparky has abused her powers, and this conduct warrants impeachment and removal from office and disqualification to hold future office under the United States. Here's more under Article 2. By blocking the implementation of the SAVE program, Judge Suki has effectively seized powers reserved for the executive branch and also interfered with the president's prerogatives. He has an obligation to faithfully execute the laws of the United States. These actions represent an improper encroachment upon the powers entrusted to democratically accountable officials. Article 3, as we know, same language, same argument, good behavior, and Congress has the authority to remove her. She's abused her position, and this conduct has demonstrated that she warrants impeachment. Same thing, saying the framers did not establish in Article 3 a judiciary as a super legislature empowered to veto executive actions because they don't like their policies. Her actions are a dangerous expansion of judicial power at the expense of the balance of power. And so she needs to be removed. Once again, this is not good behavior. She's abused her position. She's also exceeding her Article 3 authority. She's now trying to dictate national policy, and she's not allowed to do that. All of that underneath the standard of good behavior. And so Congress has an authority and an obligation to actually remove her, all now being presented to the House of Representatives, saying she's obstructing election integrity and acting as a political actor, not an impartial arbiter. Public confidence is now being imperiled when she puts her preferences above her constitutional role. Same arguments here. She, of course, not acting with good behavior in doing these things and has now abused her power. And I would like to see a little bit more meat on those bones, so I'm available to offer an amendment here. But all of the things alleged here are true. She is stepping in. She's manufacturing justifications to stop an executive order from the president that's operating under the current laws, not creating a new law, already saying we have these systems already in place. We've got the Social Security Act, which enables us to validate people under that program. We've got the Homeland Security provisions. We have a ton of data. All we're now governing is the execution of the laws. She doesn't like how they're being executed. That's her problem. She should run for president. She doesn't get to then extend her power outside of the District of Columbia as a district judge to invalidate a system that Congress passed for the entire nation. It is bad behavior, and she should be removed. And so we should validate this impeachment article and resolution and get very clear on exactly what she did and put it to a vote. And here's some more of what she's done. So the case is still maneuvering through the court. We saw there was a big battle between Sparkle and T. Kent in Florida. Florida and red states want this act. They want the SAVE database to be employed so that they can validate citizens against the actual list. They want the executive order. Huge portions of America that elected President Trump in the majority and in the electoral votes want electoral reform. She is going against the will of the people who elected this administration. Florida and other red states want to use it. In fact, they have been using it until Sparkle came out from DC and said nobody can use it anywhere. So what happened is another judge in Florida, if you missed it last week, very fun litigation, said, I don't really care what Sparkle did. A judge called T. Kent, born in Florida, an American, said, you have to use this database. Turn it back on. I don't care if Sparkle said turn it off. You have to turn it back on pursuant to a settlement agreement. Sparkle said he was an idiot, and he didn't really appreciate that. He said, to think that I would let the government enter into a settlement agreement that was illegal is basically offensive. He didn't use that word, but he got pretty close. Then Sparkle responded and said, actually, you're wrong, and the whole system needs to be invalidated across the board. Then we get to this point where the judge in Sparkle Land said, I want you guys to meet and confer and give me an update. Can you negotiate this out or what's going on? So they have now submitted that. This came in over the weekend and said, all right, Judge, I know that you told us to meet together. This is the League of Women Voters. These are nonprofits that are instituted explicitly to create a plaintiff's body that can act as an election litigator. And then they sue, and they're suing everywhere. League of Women Voters of DC, League of Women Voters of Michigan, of New Mexico, they're suing everywhere. So they sued Homeland, and they said, you can't use the database that Congress allowed you to create because Judge Sparky said no. So here's the defendant's statement. They met and conferred. Here's what the DOJ, DHS had to say. All right, as reflected in the attached declarations, we promptly came into compliance with your court order once you issued it. You said we had to turn off the SAVE database and nobody could check citizenship because you like Trinidad people. Now, due to the entry of a more recent and more specific order out of Florida, the Florida judge said, turn it back on. You can't keep it off and you must use it. Florida wants it back on. They said that we should not be entering conflicting orders. But now we face an additional set of court-ordered obligations that may not be ignored. So we've got these conflicting orders. You say off, he says on. What do we do? So in these extraordinary circumstances, we're trying to comply with all court obligations as best we can. And so to do so, we've explained in a declaration here on exactly what we've done. We are creating a technical workaround that would allow for bulk uploads and social searches in the state of Florida, Ohio, Iowa, and Indiana. Okay, red states want the system back on. So we're going to create an exception so that they can bulk upload and check all the voters and actually search via social security number, two things which she said were privacy rights violations, and so she canceled it. But those capabilities remain disabled for everyone else. Now, we discussed this process for 90 minutes with the Democrat lawyers, and here's our update. So we've come up with legal arguments, but the plaintiffs are now, the League of Women are now filing these arguments in this motion. We say it's not really appropriate for them to be making these legal arguments in this status update. That's all we're doing is giving you an update. We're just getting clarity on your prior order. Now, airing all of these complex issues, like they're dumping all this litigation in a joint status report prepared on a 24-hour turnaround, we're just talking about these things. These guys are whacked. So we can address that if you want, but they're adding in a bunch of legal arguments and just like an update. It's like a memo. Hey, we talked. This is the result of the talk. It's not a forum to make your litigation arguments known. So anyways, Judge, they have not established entitlement to relief. Okay, their argument doesn't address the differences in an injunction versus a vacator under the APA. They're two different things. And so in suggesting that the United States has a choice about restoring these things from Florida, You want us to ignore Florida? They've already rejected that. They're saying, you're not ignoring us. So you guys figure it out. In any event, we read the order from you, Sparky, as seeking factual information about the current compliance, not expecting to brief a full legal dispute. You said we should meet and confer. We've done that and propose a new schedule. And so we're offering this additional information to you. We've attached some declarations and we'll take a look at both of those. Saying we promptly came into full compliance with your order. We immediately communicated the existence of the order to the agencies. We vacated all the SORNs, which are these privacy analyses, and we've disabled the entire SAVE database, which was the modified system. And we think it was undisputed that as of the morning of July 9th, we were actually in full compliance with your order. Then, of course, we satisfied what you asked of us, so don't get mad at us. Then we further explained that Florida, the judge, we read this last week, he said, turn it back on. I don't care what she ordered you to do. She's not my judge. She doesn't govern us here in Florida. So turn it back on. That was an injunction as opposed to a vacatur in DC. So that functionality will remain unavailable to everyone else, though. Now, as explained in greater detail in the declarations, we ceased making other records available. We'll read through that in more detail. But now, after the Florida order, the Social Security Administration is making NUM ident, so it looks like a number identification record, which would presumably be the Social Security numbers, available for certain red states, Florida, Ohio, Iowa, and Indiana. But they're going to remain unavailable for everyone else across the country because Sparkle's in charge now. So then the League of Women Voters, and these are Mark Elias aligned groups. They're all the leftist lawyers who don't want anybody to check anything anywhere at any time because that would be damning for their prospects. They responded here. This is their statement. And as the DOJ already said, it's going to be a bunch of legal arguments that are not appropriate for a joint status report. The court entered a final judgment setting aside and vacating the new SAVE system, saying you can't use Social Security data for citizenship checks. Then they filed a notice of appeal, and that is working its way up the chain right now. Then they immediately filed a motion for a stay, and we had everything going on in Florida. Now, in contrast to their actions in this case, they have not sought any relief from the conflicting order in Florida. So they're saying, wait a minute, they're appealing you, but they're not appealing this other Florida judge. Well, why aren't they appealing that judge? And that was a different case. That was a settlement agreement between Florida and the Biden DHS. It was originally the Biden DHS who they were suing, and then they settled afterwards. So now they're violating you, right? They're kind of pitting them against each other. They're saying they're actually mad at you. They want to comply with Florida. They're just kind of playing this game where the DOJ is saying, we're trying to comply, but they're really not. Saying, yeah, exactly here. While they may be subject to conflicting orders, Social Security is not. And so Social Security, that administration was never a party in Florida. And so Social Security can turn off their system for even the red states. It's like a total usurpation of democracy, of our so-called system, where even a state that wants to access the system that was lawfully enabled by Congress can't use it because some other out-of-state plaintiffs, like the League of Women Voters, can go to a foreign-born judge and invalidate the entire thing across the board. So based on the record, in light of the evolving developments, you should stop and enforce them from reestablishing even the program in the 4 red states, okay? It's not good enough that she did it for all of the other 46 states, but all 50 states cannot check anything. And so that's their argument, submitted as a joint memo up into Sparkle's courtroom. So we also saw this. This is kind of how it's happening behind the scenes. We see this is one of the declarations. Bulk upload for Florida, Ohio, Iowa, and Indiana, but nobody else has now been restored. If you're in a red state, you want to submit a bulk upload request, you can use an online sharing tool to get that done. And the mechanism under Social Security searches have also now been restored, but we're now going to run those through a different system that we've kind of jerry-rigged, saying, as always, please let me know if there's anything else we need to discuss. This came over from Chief Litigation Counsel at the DOJ, Civil Division, who's saying kind of how we did this. We can move more slowly than before. Within the next 2 weeks, we're going to implement technical changes to provide other responses. even after we have to stop using this other tool that we've kind of built for this. Here's another update from Brian. He is the acting chief for verification under USCIS. He says, I handle this. And following Sparkle's order, we disabled the save system for everybody. Then we submitted 3 queries through this upload using API tools. Then Florida issued their order. Then we ceased the development of the other features that she said we couldn't enable. Then in July, pursuant to another order, we began the process of re-enabling these things. And now in Florida, they can use the secure file upload service, which presumably will get around some of the privacy objections that Sparkle had in her brain. Another declaration here. And of course, we see what Sparkle did is she said, I want further briefing on this. So they submitted their arguments. She came out. She said, I direct you to again meet and confer by the close of business today and to resolve your disputes. You shall file any motion to enforce or clarify by tomorrow. And then Homeland shall respond by the 16th. And then a reply by the League of Women Democrats, July 17th. The party should be prepared to attend a hearing on this, 10 a.m. July 20th, if needed. Courts encourage the parties to try to resolve this dispute amicably in light of Florida recognizing that there is merit. Okay, so now she's saying that the Florida judge should give way and that Social Security is not bound by its July 6th order. So in other words, they can then just nuke the Social Security Administration's component of the entire inquiry, which is just wild to see. I mean, she needs to be impeached and removed immediately. The whole thing is just a total sham. And you can have the League of Women Voters, a non-elected and 501c3, a nonprofit, an entity overriding the will of the entire American public who elected the new Trump administration to handle all of this. It's infuriating. And so Congress needs to impeach this lady and fix this problem, which is why we're happy to see that we at least have a resolution pending in Congress as it stands right now. But one other representative called Ralph Norman, he said we just should pass the SAVE Act and just take this all away from these judges in the first place. Congress has already passed these other provisions that enable the SAVE database to be created in the first place. Now it's invalidated because they're using it in a way that Sparky doesn't like. So here's Ralph Norman. He said, this shouldn't even be a hard vote, okay? Proof of citizenship and voter ID are common sense. Time is running out to protect your vote before the midterms. Let's get on it.
I mean, think about it. This isn't rocket science to insist that in voting in federal elections that you have to be a U.S. citizen, you have to have proof of who you are, photo ID, which we have to do to get on an airplane, to get medicine, and even to go to the Obama Library, his building that he built. And you had to have proof of you are who you say you are. Look, we just had an election in South Carolina. We had less than 20% of the voting electorate to come out and vote. And, you know, I think a lot of it is people think their votes don't count. But if they ever think that it's unsecure and that the right people, which are American citizens, picking our leaders, then it'll dwindle even further. Now's the time to act, and the Senate can come back and to deal with this. They can make their own rules. That's why we spoke on it. And if not now, when?
It needs to be now, because if the Democrats, God forbid, return to power, they're going to nuke the filibuster and they're going to do the exact inverse of the SAVE Act. They're going to make any electoral integrity checks completely neutered and invalid, comport a new policy that resembles California with mass voter enfranchisement and no checks across the board, and will continue to have foreign-born dual citizen judges like Sparkle who get a lawsuit from a very friendly, blue-aligned entity like the League of Women Voters and invalidates the will of the entire public that voted in 24 for a new administration to elect Trump to actually fix elections. That was part of the equation. He said 2020 was rigged. They lectured all of us for 4 years that it wasn't, and Trump was undermining democracy. We said, no, he isn't, liars. Sent him back in to actually enforce the laws that are already on the books, which is exactly what he's doing. And then a Biden judge nukes the entire process. It's reprehensible. This is bad behavior. She should be impeached and removed immediately, and I hope it happens. So we'll keep our eye on this one. Thank you to Abe Amade for kicking things off. Hopefully, this generates some support in Congress and the Judiciary Committee, and Jim Jordan takes it seriously because this is their constitutional duty. If they're not checking these judges, no one is, and this type of behavior continues on. And it's the real threat to democracy. It's not checking citizenship against the federal list. It's a judge, unelected, obliterating the will of the people and the actions of their elected representatives. So we'll keep our eye on this one. Thanks for sharing this so that people see what the hell's going on with these judges. And we'll see you when there's more developments on this case. All right, now one more update on the day. And then we'll hear from you. But let's take a look at what's going on in SCOTUS land as well. Supreme Court Judge Kagan now in big trouble. There's a conflict of interest brewing, and it's time she recuses herself from some upcoming cases in the next term. We've got now conservative groups saying she cannot be impartial. There's evidence that she was colluding with some other very far left organizations on cases that she'll be hearing. And so this was a new complaint that got submitted. Fox News covering the story, but we've got the full complaint here. And this is a compendium of a bunch of conservative groups that have identified this problem. And let me just share with you a list of some of them. Carrie Campbell Severino, president of the Judicial Crisis Network. We've got the Heritage Foundation, Texas Public Policy CEO, Republican National Lawyers Association, Citizens United, America First Policy Institute, Tea Party Patriots, many more, all calling this out in a direct claim against Judge Kagan, who, of course, is a leftist judge on the Supreme Court right now. And so this letter was now sent over to the Senate Judiciary Committee saying you guys need to investigate whether Judge Kagan actually violated federal ethics rules. Uh-oh. She participated in cases that she should not have participated in, and her impartiality is now reasonably being questioned. We had a case called Suncor Energy versus Boulder County. Question was whether Colorado local governments can use state law to hold oil and gas companies financially liable for their contributions to climate change. Yeah. She wrote in a foreword that we should be doing certain things. And so Fox News, of course, covering it in detail. There's a photograph of Elena Kagan on the Supreme Court. And here is what they ultimately said in their judicial complaint against her. And this one is going over to Chuck Grassley, to Ted Cruz, chairman, who is on the subcommittee on federal courts. Judiciary Committee's getting it. We got Dick Durbin getting one. We got Whitehouse, who wife allegedly used to be a part of a racist whites only club. Ranking member, also on the courts, the other half of Ted Cruz. They explain this as follows. All right, Grassley and Dick and Ted and Whitehouse. We write to you to express our deep concerns about Elena Kagan on the Supreme Court. She has a very inconsistent history of recusing herself from cases from which her participation should be foreclosed. There is a long-standing federal law that means she needs to get off the case. Given her prior public statements on the subject of the litigation, this leaves no doubt about her lack of impartiality. Her regular and irregular recusal practice in cases on which she has staked a position in public undermines our confidence in the court. This would not occur were she to adhere to accepted ethical standards that prevent her from adjudicating cases where her impartiality might reasonably be questioned. They'll explain it all. Now, as such, we urge you, the Judiciary Committee, to swiftly investigate whether Judge Kagan has violated federal law and the court's own adopted code of conduct. Here's what happened. On February 23, 2026, Judge Kagan failed to recuse herself when the court granted a petition for a writ of cert brought by oil companies called Suncor Energy and ExxonMobil in the case Suncor versus Boulder. The case is likely to be heard in the court's new upcoming term starting in October, and it involves a challenge to a Colorado state tort judgment against oil and gas companies for their contributions to climate change. So Colorado finds against the oil companies, you're extracting that horrific earth-ending oil. And so now you get a financial penalty and a tort challenge. Problem is, and why she should not be hearing this case, is because she's biased. Back in December 31, 2025, Kagan authored the foreword, wrote in this edition on reference manual on scientific evidence. Okay, so some treatise or some article. The National Academies of Science publishes this thing. She writes the foreword to it. In that foreword, she specifically talks about climate change and climate litigation. The lawsuit originally initiated against Suncor and Exxon by Colorado in the state of Colorado is one of dozens of orchestrated lawsuits brought by city and state governments against oil companies. They want to go after the oil companies, get big settlements saying you're wrecking our environment, you're causing and contributing to climate change. We want millions of dollars from you back to our states. These cases are going to be called climate lawfare cases, just for ease of convenience. Now, at the heart of these cases is whether or not state courts may apply state tort law to assess damages against oil and gas companies. Why? Climate change that are also allegedly attributable to those individual companies. So can states sue oil companies and get money out of them? Now, as the state and local climate lawfare cases are undeniably interlinked legally, and due to Judge Kagan's obvious and public prejudgment of the material legal questions, as described below, the only ethical obligation, since she's already prejudged all of this, she's already explained that, this is lawful and appropriate, she can't hear this case as a disinterested party, saying there needs to be a blanket recusal from participating in any one of these lawfare cases. Here's what she did. On December 31, the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering and Medicine, some hack entity, I'm sure, created the reference manual on scientific evidence, probably filled with a bunch of non-scientific idiots. Unlike the previous three editions, the fourth edition included a chapter entitled Climate Science, which is not really scientific at all. They just say, you're causing climate change. Can you really quantify that for us, or like what is happening, or how broad of a scope on the historical change of the climate do you want to go? Well, they like to go back to the 1800s and say it's gone up since the internal combustion engine, whatever. But then you go back another 5,000, 10,000 years and you see it's like this all the time. But they blame humanity for it because they just don't want any growth and they want everybody to become a communist that is living on limited means while they all get fat and rich off of the misery of everyone else. Turn your AC down. As has been cataloged at length, that chapter is riddled with bias. Among its many problems was a section on the so-called attribution theory, whereby scientific modeling is used to attribute the effects of climate change to specific greenhouse gas emitters. This section was designed to persuade, quote, skeptical judges in state and local climate lawfare, authored by two individuals who advocate literally for that litigation, largely lifted word from academic articles the authors wrote alongside a plaintiff lawyer in many of those cases, and provided to the plaintiff lawyer for feedback prior to publication. So it's all highly interested people who are trying to brainwash the judges, shoving their propaganda into a reference manual, and then saying that is gospel, then trying to shift the litigation environment and make the judges comply with their preferred outcomes. And they all get rich off the lawsuits because the lawyers are going to take a big fat portion of the settlement with the oil companies. They're going to take, when they settle for tens of millions of dollars, they're getting paid. Probably a percentage, just like in a personal injury case. Indeed, the reference guide itself was, quote, made possible by financial support from an entity that funds the plaintiff's lawyers in state and local climate lawfare. They don't care about saving the planet. They care about creating a new tort vehicle. So you have these ambulance chasing lawyers who want to handle your personal injury claim. Now they want to just sue the oil companies. They'll get a lot more money off of that. So that chapter was so biased that the Federal Judicial Center, which produced the reference manual with the National Academies, actually withdrew it from the version that it publishes in response to complaints from multiple state AGs and from Congress. They all said this is not accurate at all. But Kagan, now on the Supreme Court, She wrote the introduction for the reference manual. And in her writing, she said, she observes, quote, in the coming years, judges will confront lawsuits relating, for example, to AI, true, climate science, which is made up, and epidemiology. She continues, enter this manual. Because case in and case out, the instruction that the manual offers in scientific principles and methods can improve the quality of judicial decision-making, endorsing the scam from the highest judge in America. One of them. So given the rank bias of the climate science chapter in favor of the people doing the suing, who are in favor of ripping off the oil companies, it is outrageous that Kagan would then promote the chapter as a solution to the challenges that judges will confront, saying, if you're a judge, now I'm endorsing this type of analysis. Read the reference manual, do what it says. It was written by plaintiff lawyers, now endorsed by a Supreme Court judge. Wild. This is exactly the issue confronting the court that's now in front of her. And the plaintiff authored answers provide the climate science chapter leave no doubt on how a judge should resolve it. Find in favor of the plaintiffs. Make sure they get $1 billion settlement from the oil companies. The states can get rich off of it, and the plaintiffs' lawyers will buy a new boat. As Notre Dame law scholar of legal ethics, somebody called Bill Daley said, I'm surprised sitting judges would put their names on a document that seems to operate like an amicus brief, that Kagan did so when there are doubtless climate cases pending on the manual, on the cert docket in the Supreme Court. That manual would resolve all of these in favor of the plaintiffs, and that raises serious concerns. So now her participation in this case is indefensible given her public endorsement of the climate lawfare theories. Now, this is not the first time that she's refused to recuse herself from cases in which her impartiality might reasonably be questioned. She also argued the case called Citizens United. While she was the Solicitor General of the United States, she lost that one. Soon after, however, the efforts to reverse Citizens began. There was another case called American Tradition versus Bullock, went to the Supreme Court in 2012. The court applied its holding in Citizens to reverse the decision by the Montana Supreme Court, which ignored the decision in a shocking act of judicial resistance against binding precedent, which is now happening more and more. Kagan, in that case, joined Breyer's dissent, which observed, I disagree with the court's holding in Citizens for the reasons expressed in Stevens' dissent. On the one hand, of course, Kagan disagreed with that holding. She argued against it as the AG for the government under Obama. On the other, how can anyone possibly dispute that her partiality in that case would be in question given that fact? That did not deter her from participation in that case. Okay, in other words, she should have not decided that case because she was arguing the underlying precedent that she lost on, meaning she's going to be biased in her decision on SCOTUS. Now, Kagan also participated in Sebelius in 2012, that case on the constitutionality of the Affordable Care Act. This too came on the heels of her time as the Solicitor General under Obama. While NFIB was argued by her successor, Donald Verrilli, it strains credulity to assert, as Kagan did, that she did not substantially participate in the defense of Obama's signature legislation, which Roberts also screwed us on. Indeed, evidence suggests otherwise, but nevertheless, Judge Kagan participated in the case, and she cast the deciding vote to save the Affordable Care Act because Roberts came out and he said it's a tax. And so since it's a tax, we can do whatever we want. And in America, we can now force you to buy a product. That's liberty. Land of the home, land of the free, home of the brave, land of the free. She says you have to now go buy a product. That's democracy in action. Another unelected judge making a decision. Even though she should have recused herself, then it would have been an 8-judge panel. And presumably Roberts wouldn't have won that majority. But we got it. Thank you, Kagan, for not recusing. Even Gabe Roth, the president of the liberal Fix the Court, said, surely Kagan's experience in the Obama administration was significant involvement in the Affordable Act cases, and she was still personally involved and failed to recuse. So, or take Briones. There, the court granted, vacated, and remanded the case back to the Ninth Circuit. Kagan, however, did not recuse herself, despite having participated in an earlier iteration of the same case as solicitor. As with NFIB, the liberals at Fix the Court emailed the clerk on May 6th about it, and that afternoon issued a letter to the parties noting the error. Similar situation in Jennings. There, Kagan again recused in that one, but only after the case had been argued twice, and she presumably knew how the other judges voted at conference. So if her vote is needed and it's going to help she'll stay on. But if it's not needed and the case is a foregone conclusion in an outcome that she likes, she'll get off the case because it's just politics. This checkered history of participation in cases where Kagan's partiality could be and is reasonably questioned makes clear she should recuse herself from further participation in these new climate lawfare cases that we'll be covering next term. If Kagan, in conclusion, will not take it upon herself to follow the law, which requires her recusal from any proceeding in which her impartiality might reasonably be questioned, the Senate Judiciary Committee must step up, Chuck. The committee should investigate and hold hearings in order to uphold the public's substantial interest in ethical rigor from the justices on our nation's highest court. Sincerely, your friends across the conservative spectrum. Consumers Defense, JCN, Energy and Environment Legal, Coalition for a Fair Judiciary, Heartland Impact, Committee for Justice, and more and more and more. And so we'll see if she ultimately does that. It sounds like she'll recuse if she's not needed, if she's happy with the outcome. Otherwise, she'll write the manual on how to win a climate lawfare case, write the forward for it, endorse everything that the plaintiffs bar has now created in this new tort institution to sue the oil companies on behalf of the state governments. States get rich, plaintiffs' lawyers get rich. America pays higher prices at the gas pump because oil is, of course, condemned, even though everybody uses it. You need it for every single thing in American life. But the lawyers want to get rich off of it. And they've got a new Supreme Court judge who's going to help them do that. So we'll see if she recuses or if the judiciary ultimately investigates. But thank you to our friends at the Judicial Crisis Network and Carrie Severino, who wrote the book called Elena Kagan. It's called The Justice Who Knew Too Much, for delivering ethical accountability on the Supreme Court up into the Senate. We'll keep our eye on this one and we'll see what Kagan does. All right. And so, my friends, what a beautiful stream it has been. If you're just getting here, quick recap on all of the things we talked about today. Some good updates. We heard from the Democrats saying if you pass the Save America Act, they'll never win another election. And we know because they've rigged it in their favor, just like they did with the racist gerrymandering and more. So we talked about that. Rand Paul said she's a liar. You don't have to bring your birth certificate to go vote because it's not in the bill, as we read. We then heard from the president about Lindsey Graham. We saw his sister is now going to be filling his spot. We've got a bunch of illegal aliens all chronicled here, voting from Hawaii, from Kansas, from Pakistan and New Jersey. We've had the very ugly person called, and I mean internally, called Debbie, who is saying Trump is a racist, the Supreme Court is racist, but America wants and needs more Haitians here to live in this racist environment, which is weird. They should go back home to their great Haiti, as she called it. Meanwhile, the FBI is surging agents into Georgia, presumably to count some ballots and go through some records. We also saw a husband and wife analyst team who I would imagine they claim to be intelligent, but we might debate that, have been fired and walked out of the office for not wanting to join in the inquiry. So they're gone. We've got some birthright citizenship updates that we talked about with Indiana Senator Banks saying a new bill will be submitted. Trump is saying he's going to have a big speech, 9 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday, presumably to talk about some new election discoveries from Bill Pulte and others. And we're excited for that. We also then read through the impeachment articles against Judge Sparkle, brought to us courtesy of Abe Amade. And he had, I think, 4 or 5 different counts in here. And we could find a lot more, but we're happy it started. We looked at her litigation and the back and forth between the DOJ and the League of Women Voters and how infuriating it is that one hack judge from Washington, D.C. can invalidate the entire will of the American public who voted legally and lawfully in the last election to reform our elections, all stopped because one group and one judge. So we'll keep our eye on that one. And then, of course, Judge Kagan coming under scrutiny for some ethical problems, as a whole compendium of conservatives say she needs to recuse herself, and the fact that she's not doing it shows what a biased partisan person she is. So a beautiful stream. Happy Monday. Hopefully your week is off to a tremendous start. We appreciate you joining us. Thank you for subscribing and being here. We also had a beautiful members only stream this morning. We talked about a couple of updates. Of course, the Lindsey Graham passing, may he rest in peace. We talked about the Mitch McConnell photo this morning and whatever that was. We also learned about some internal Supreme Court battling, knives being out, according to some commentators and observers, as the Supreme Court works its way through the ramifications of their last term. They'll also be out tomorrow morning. Both Amy Coney Barrett and Judge Kagan in front of Congress talking about budget and why they need more money to protect themselves and do other things. And then we also learned that the Trump DOJ is now suing a blue sanctuary state. We read through some of that lawsuit this morning on the members only morning stream. And we had a great time doing it. And thank you for considering becoming a member and seeing us tomorrow morning when we're back. We do a bunch of member streams. We stream on Saturday, we stream in the mornings, and we have a great time with our members. So thank you for supporting our work and for being a member and all the things. We'll see you tomorrow. Or grab the stream from this morning if you just became a member, and hopefully you enjoy it, talking about some other actions that happened today. All right, let's see who's joining us today. As we wrap out the night, we had some great comments and some new members. Man, speaking of our members, thank you guys for bringing in some new friends. We love meeting our new friends. A bunch of members, man. Thank you, everybody, for inviting so many people in. Let's give them big welcomes in. What a lovely day it has been. Yeah, I know. The IRS case, we didn't talk about that. It was so irritating. But yeah, busted. Man, busted in the house. Thank you for the GIF. Oh, and this dude. Yeah, Kurt Russell, right? What was that in? Escape from New York? Great film. Yeah, it's going to be like America soon. Escape from communist hellscape, Sparkle Land. Yeah, not good. All right, so what's going on? Hey, Mark Burton, man. Mark, thanks for bringing in some new members, including this guy. Who the F is Gray? I can't believe you got that in a screen name on YouTube. That's pretty incredible. Welcome. Looking forward to meeting you. Lisa Hines, what's up? Oso MXL. We got Lucid Heat Death. It is hot. We got Red Wine Entertainment and Mark Burton. Mark, you got... Hey, Mark, thank you for bringing in a bunch of membos and for being a membo yourself. Amazing to have you here. Looking forward to seeing everybody tomorrow morning. Big Trouble in Little China. Great film. Great film. I remember that one too. Yeah, that was like an era. Big Trouble in Little China. Is that what that? Yeah, I thought it was like Escape from New York or something. Shout out. Yeah, I need to watch those again. Hey, thank you, Mark, for bringing some new friends in. What's going on? Childress Iman in the house. Welcome aboard. Thank you, Childress, for becoming a member. We'll see you in the morning as well. We had a great stream this morning, too. Hey, Tim Jake, man. There are some who call him Tim. What's up, Tim Jake? Bringing in 10 new friends. Tim, you rock, man. Thank you. The Lady Dixon, welcome. Uniquely Rubiella. We got Tammy's Awake. OFFS is here. Barb Thompson. What's up, Sakura? We got Little Shoe. Lone the Wolf. We got Jerry Turkey. And we got Eric Groden in the house, all gifted membos, courtesy of our friend. There are some who call him Tim. You're the man, Tim. Thank you. Rick D, what's up? Yeah, this one was infuriating. We'll see what the DOJ does with this. But yeah, an Obama judge called Kathleen Williams vacated the settlement deal between Trump and the IRS. She blasted them, and she referred Todd Blanche, the acting AG, over to the DC and New York bars. So saying his license should be taken away from him as he's about to, I believe this week, literally sit for confirmation hearings in front of the Senate. An Obama judge, Kathleen Williams. These judges are just out of control, completely out of control. And so it was like a 50-pager. It's like not even worth reading, but we'll see. I'm sure they'll appeal this. So once we get some response from the DOJ, this dropped. All of the leftists were like, oh my gosh, this is like, Christmas morning for them, even though I don't think they believe in Jesus. So you get it. But thank you, Rick, for the heads up. It was another update. I was thinking about working that in, but we have enough Sparkle business to attend to. I can only get so infuriated. Da Hook, McConnell never looked better. I've seen this, man. We were saying this. McConnell's going to be doing backflips and handsprings and tap dancing, doing the Irish jig back there in no time. Yeah, and look at him go, man. So here. Yeah, man, he's doing great. And his wife, who just got back from China, she's as excited as can be. Look at him. He's good. He's vibrant, baby. He's breakdancing, Mitch. Mitch is breakdancing. Oh, my God. He looks great. Yeah, so no problem. Great. So hopefully he ends the filibuster and passes the SAVE Act, and we can all be happy too. I tell you what, man, Mitch passes the SAVE Act for us all. I'll be breakdancing on the floor too. I don't even know how to breakdance, but if Mitch can figure it out, I think I can too. He looks great. Hey, I'm P Pickin' Cute. What's going on? And thank you to Hook for that one. I'm P Pickin' Cute. Says, what the heck? They're still going with this married women can't vote thing? They just pulled that out of their butts. She did. That's exactly what I said. And it stinks. I can't. Begging, rigging her democracy. Am I not a woman whose name changed her name once? Shut up. I'm so sick of these people. Me too. I can't take it. Oh! You know, his sister is as much as a rhino as him. Oh, I don't know anything about his sister. Yeah, but hopefully she ends the filibuster, right? I don't wish death on anyone, but, some issues with Lindsey Graham. Well, she's going to be the new replacement. So, it's not usually good to speak ill of the dead. Lindsey made his effort, made his case. He wasn't American. We disagreed with some things. On other things, he was very good. And so may he rest in peace. Prayers up for his family. And now his sister can pass the SAVE Act and the filibuster and really deliver for America. Michelle, it is past time for federal election dollars to be withheld until a state provides proof that they have cleaned up their voter rolls annually. Yeah, so Michelle, you may have missed it, but I think it was last week. They started something kind of like this. It wasn't as aggressive as this, which I wish it was. But Homeland said that they're going to be withholding FEMA money. Okay, they got $1 billion in FEMA funds. They consider national security to include elections. And so they said that they're going to withhold, I think, 20% of FEMA grants from states unless the states comply. We read that. I think we released a video on it. Maybe we talked about that Saturday. I think a video might be coming out today on that. But they do have a new program. So they're saying if you don't comply, you're not getting your grant. Grants are voluntary. You need to audit. I think it was 5% of all votes. You need to, there were other provisions. I think one was check citizenship one was delete, stop using QR codes, use paper ballots. There were some limitations, which was good. And I'm for that. Use the power of the purse. Congress should be doing this too. Right? Just say, you're not getting money. We're just not going to fund you unless you actually comply with this. But it's Congress, so what do they care? Thank you, Michelle. It's a good idea. Baby Lewis, hey, Taylor Swift wedding required a government-issued photo ID. Wow. That's something. So Taylor Swift's wedding is more secure than America's elections. Isn't that just something? We're totally screwed. We're doomed if that's the case. Thank you, Baby Lewis. Hey, I'm P Pickin' Q. Come on now, Rob. You know all those illegals are totally voting R. They'd love nothing more than a free trip home. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, we voted for Trump. Yeah, okay. To end your status of being an illegal here? You completely know it. Stop your misinformation campaign. They might deplatform you again. P.S. I can't stand Wasserman Schultz, which is why we didn't play the full clip of her. We could only take 45 seconds. Then we needed to go wash our eyes out with bleach. You know, why? All right, I'm P Pickin' Q. Thank you. Yeah, if they were actually voting Republican, the Democrats would have had that border locked down so aggressively, they would be demanding voter ID. That's how you know they're not. Hey, what's up, Biology? Good to see you. Biology always wins in the house. Hopefully your week is amazing. Thank you for bringing in 5 new friends, as you often do. We appreciate you. Wendy A. Ty, good to see you. Random Girl K, what's up? We got Linda Way, David Lee Sir Hope, welcome Sir Hope, and Dorkstar in the house, all brought in courtesy of Biology. Thank you, Biology, for bringing in 5 new members. We appreciate that. Michelle, you remember? Yeah, we talked about that one. Yeah, so more of that. I'm in favor. More of that. Twilight Zone, what's up? Hey, Twilight Zone, thank you. Not even a member, and bringing in 5 more. What a nice, generous person. Schlott Clank, welcome. Sweden, we got the Ghost Doctor. Patriots here. Verna Coy in the house, courtesy of Twilight Zone, who is so selfless, he's not even a member, but he's gifting out memberships. You're the man. Hey, there he is, Twilight Zone. Became a member. Thank you, Twilight Zone. Spoke too soon. Good to see you. We'll see you in the morning. Thank you for bringing new friends in. Hey, Winning Reality. Okay, hope it's now clear. The whole McConnell narrative started on the false premise that he had a heart attack. People jumped on it without real proof, and it spread as truth. Now people can't reconcile the fact that he just had another fall. Yeah, that happens a lot. I mean, that has been happening a lot. And when there's an information void, people just kind of fill in the gaps. I think it's kind of a human thing, natural thing to do. But McConnell, I think we did see a video of him going into the back of an ambulance. But yeah, people just speculate. And, you know, who knows what ultimately happened to the guy. But he has been falling a lot. And we've seen that many times before. So if past performance is any indicator, it's probably a fall. And we hope he's well. We hope he's good. You know, we hope he recovers and comes on back. But you saw the same thing even winning reality with Graham, right? As soon as Graham died, everybody was like, the Russians. They took him out. He was over at Zelensky's place, you know, hanging out with Zelensky, looking at drones, having a lot of fun talking about drones and war and all those things. And then suddenly he comes home and he's dead. And everybody goes, what the hell was that? Then you look into it and you start to see, oh, it's, you know, a heart problem. His father died of a heart problem. His grandfather died of a heart problem. Everybody starts to piece together the actual genetic component. And the guy 71 didn't look that particularly like vigorous in terms of exercise and other things. So, you know, it starts to make sense. Or maybe the Russians took him out. Who knows? But, you know, we'll accept the narrative. I think that it's probably hard to take a senator's body and fake it when you've got a bunch of people working on the guy. So point is, you know, people fill in the gaps. We appreciate the nice super chat. Thank you, Winning Reality. Good to have you here. Hey, Sev Russ, the 55-mile man. Good to see you. Bringing in 5 new members. Thank you, Sev. We got Truth Over Agenda. We got Intuitive Karen is here. The NAP, welcome. Michael Cheney and Justin Canoy, all gifted memberships, courtesy of Sev Russ in the house. Good to see you, Sev Russ. Thanks for being here. What's up? Look at this nice, handsome cat. More here. Man, we got so many new members coming in. I'm excited to see everybody tomorrow. Get Lucky Fishing. Welcome. Scott B. We got Louis B. Fishing. Bog TV. Jay Wilson. Woo Queen B. Mutt Bunch. We got Chasing Zion Podcast. Welcome. Savina and Chiva. We got IQ Norez. Lil Mandy's here. We're for Jesus. True. Don't is here. Marcus Lucius. We got Pan-Seared Ribeye. Amazing. Angel Baby. Big Pete. What's up? Richard Freeman. Leo. Wayne Hinson. And Just Rhonda making big welcomes in for all of our new members. Gifted courtesy of More Here. Bringing in 20 More Here. Thank you, More Here, for doing that. See everybody in the morning. Hey, NY. The Citizen Act is precise law I was speaking of, but it would only work prospectively. We have a current huge immigrant issue. The senators give lip service to this. The Senate would allow Trump's recess appointments. Should allow Trump recess appointments. Yeah, they should. They should, but they gavel in and they just keep the scam going, so he can't do any of those things. But yeah, I like that, right? Declare an invasion under Article 4. The federal government has an obligation to protect the states against invasion. The invaders, I mean, I would think it could even be prospective if you are an illegal. You would just quantify that person as an invader. You came in against the law illegally. That makes you an invader. And Congress can supersede the 14th Amendment by referring back to Article 4. And say that takes precedent, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, still has effect, but it wouldn't be for illegal people. Okay, so like the 14th Amendment and birthright citizenship could still arguably be, you know, passed down to like TPSers, like people here temporarily. Legally here, they're not invaded. They haven't invaded. We brought them here for whatever reason. So I think, you know, that you could bifurcate the two. That's what they were talking about. But the invaders, the illegals, you could separate that out under Article 4. I like it. I think it's a good strategy, and see what John Roberts does with that and how he contorts that into a billion pieces. Hey, call me legend. I'm guessing the new babe won't be named Sparkle. No. Harambe, Tiberius, Agamemnon, Genghis. Those are the names. Sparkle, no. I'm so irritated with Sparkle, I don't even like confetti anymore. The next July 4th, if I ever see a sparkler, I'm going to impeach it. That's how irritated I am. Any other fireworks or anything, they're all getting impeached. Get that out of here. Go back to, take your sparklers back to Trinidad. You know, that's how I feel. Hey, thank you. Call me legend, all right? What's up? King of Biltong is here. Skip the gas station junk food while traveling. Don't eat that crap. Pack Biltong from Biltong USA. Clean protein packed with grass-fed, air-dried beef with great flavor. And get it at BiltongUSA.com. Code Robert for 10% off. Thank you for being here, King of Biltong. Sparkle. Oh, could you imagine? Hey, everybody, it's Sparkle, our new child. Wow. Sometimes I'll tell people about our name, you know, Genghis, Agamemnon, Tiberius, Harambe. And people who are not like on the internet or not in our in-group, they just look at me like I'm freaking nuts. I told somebody the other day, actually, we're at the July 4th event. Somebody, you know, Alexis is pregnant. Everybody, oh, wow, what's it going on? So we talked to this guy and he's like, any names? And we said, yeah. And he said, can you tell us? I said, well, obviously not. That's classified information. I don't even know you. He said, well, give me a hint. I said, all right, I'll tell you. It's Genghis, Harambe, Agamemnon, Tiberius. He just like looked at me like, what kind of a freak show are you? But his son got it. His son was like, Harambe, hell yeah. High five. And he gave me a high five. And the father was like, what is going on right now? Anyway, it's a good time. I don't know why I said that. But Lori Pipkin, Sparkle needs to click her heels together and say, there's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. Does she really think she is the supreme leader of America? Yes, she does. She really does. They all do. They all think that they can come here. They've been here for 5 friggin' minutes and they're going to lecture us about American constitutional law and about American constitutional republicanism. What are you talking about? It's offensive. I can't even take it. So Lori Pipkin, thank you for the comment. That, you know, and if America is such a violation of privacy rights and everything is so racist and Trump is making fun of cats and dogs and all the things, just go home. And then you can go back to Haiti, you can go back to Trinidad, and you can be a judge down there. Like, why don't you go be a judge down there? Why don't you go back to Haiti and, you know, live in a not racist, great country? Go for it. We're all for it. We'll give you a ticket. We'll actually pay for your ticket to get the hell out of here. Tony Hey Muckets, what's up? Thank you for bringing in 5 new friends. You're amazing. Hey, it's the Munkets. Almost missed that, Tony Hey. What's going on? We got Fried Pie. Welcome. Doug is joining us. Zach the Saint. We got Rich Ramsey and Jeremy Miller, all gifted memberships, courtesy of Tony Hey Munkets in the house. Yeah, Tiberius is pretty good, you know, especially if he is the captain of a Starship Enterprise. Hey, Just Don Soulless Ginger. Man, look at all these new members. I'm super excited. Thank you, everybody, for bringing everybody in. What's going on? Just Don Soulless Ginger. Nice to have you. Bring it in. BRB STL. We got Cats Paws. Big E. What's up? Moshika Kaufman. We got Salty Maynor saying what's up. Alice later. Jones, Grade A Boom. What if any Welding? What's up? Edward Elkins and CC December, all gifted memberships courtesy of Just Don Soulless Ginger, who I believe has tremendous soul. What's up, Rhonda? Man, just Rhonda, our purveyor of fine emojis. Got so many new friends to meet in the morning. Just Rhonda, purveyor of fine emojis, all those beautiful emojis you see in the chat, cultivated and generated. We have the finest emojis in the land. Thank you to Just Rhonda, aka Sassy Gemini. Seaman Standard Poodles. JHK Asturias. T Show Will Sheenan in the house. Michelle, what's up? Canadian Brit. Andrew Ball. Jim Prilly. One Eye Willie. Charles Hoosier in the house. Gifted memberships courtesy of Just Rhonda. Thank you, Just Rhonda, for everything you do, including our emojis and our 10 new members. Hey, it's Tony Hey Munkets. Bringing in 5 new friends. Tony Hey, you're the man. Thank you. Harley's dad, what's up? Old Drill Sergeant. We got Mia So Mito. We got Gaza Demand and Shaman Sundays in the house, courtesy of Tony Hey Munkets. Hey, it's the Munkets. And man, we're going to have so many people to meet in the morning. I better really do a good job tomorrow morning. King of Biltong. Hey, Biltong, you got your new channel up? Shout out. Check out our Rumble channel for all things do-it-yourself, Biltong, and cool American history, streaming live 9 a.m. Eastern Time and 8 a.m. Central Time. channel at Rustic Ranch at rumble.com/c/Rustic Ranch. Amazing. Man, I'll make sure I'm subscribed over there. Thank you, King of Biltong. Have a great stream tomorrow morning. Sounds fun. Trino Galaxy is saying bad judges should have checks and balances applied to them appropriately and be impeached and removed from office. Thank you for being here for 12 months. Trino Galaxy in the house. Peacefully and legally. Thank you. I appreciate the energy. Lori Pipkin, who gave her all that power? She shouldn't have gotten away with it in the first place. I think you're talking about Sparkle. She took it. She took it for herself. The judiciary just seizes power. They just say, what are you going to do about it? Impeach me? No. What are you going to do? Remove me? No. Are you going to defund my district? No. Nothing. Oh, is John Roberts going to come yell at me? No, he won't. He's not going to do anything. So they can do whatever they want. In fact, they get lapped up. Okay, they all, I would imagine, are one big disgusting group chat. Just like, oh yeah, do this and do that. I guarantee it. Because I've seen it at lower levels. But yeah, they probably have a freaking listserv or, group Discord server or something, all just talking about how they're the most powerful branch in the government. Sick. Oh, there's that guy. Yeah. Hey, call me legend. Hey, Rob, have you looked up the real Dan Sullivan please stand up? Alaska Senate controversy? No, I've not heard that. Oh, I think I have heard that. There's two Dan Sullivans, right? Is it the Democrats who are trying to run a guy named Dan Sullivan? So there's a legitimate candidate called Dan Sullivan on the ballot. Then there's another person they're running also named Dan Sullivan. So in other words, the ballot will have two people named Dan Sullivan. Then it will split the vote because people won't know who the real Dan Sullivan is. And the Democrats will win. Something like that going on, right? I will have to look that up. I think there was litigation over that, but we haven't covered a lot of that here or any of it here. So call me legend. Thank you, man. 16 months as a membo. Yeah, they're sneaky people. They just can't win fair and square. So they always got to do these little scams. Rob, 41 days in Pennsylvania Avenue and the National Mall becomes a race course. It's going to be free tickets. Yeah, I think we're going to go to that. The Indy 500, whatever that is at the White House or, around DC. It's going to be wild. Race cars everywhere, which will be cool. Thank you, Rob. Hopefully you can make it down and come join. Old Fat Man, what's up? Hey, man, sorry to hear this. Please say a prayer for my sister who passed this morning. Man, I'm sorry to hear that, Old Fat Man. After a long fight with cancer, may God bless her and keep her in his loving embrace. Heavenly Father, please watch over the sister of this gentleman. We pray for her family. We hope you accept her with open arms and incorporate her into your heavenly bliss such that she is feeling your eternal grace and is watching over us, looking down upon us. We'll be reunited again, but not yet. And please give healing, loving energy to her family, who is no doubt going through a time of mourning and grief. Envelop them in your love and help support them during this difficult time. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Old Fat Man, sorry to hear about that, my man. And peace to both you and your family. Thanks for allowing people in the chat to pray for you all. What's up? Hey, there's Trump. Hope President Trump gets who he wants to replace Graham. He did. Actually, he wanted his sister. And so that's happened. And I don't really know much about her at all, to be honest. I don't know if she's got any background in politics or what's going on, but as long as she nukes the filibuster and passes the SAVE Act, I'm for it. And maybe somebody without any political background is even better, but Sandra, thank you for the donation and for the great comment. I think Trump wanted her, and the governor came out and did that exactly. So it was a good victory. I'm Picking Cute. Hey, just checked my mail. Got my Quality Leering Center shirt. Join me in laughter. Oh, that's a great shirt, man. That is great. Quality Leering Center. I mean, it was such a I can't even. That's real. That was really going on. They were getting hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. What a joke. That's amazing. Thank you. I'm Picking Cute. Would love to see you out there. Hey, Off-Label Pod, LMFAO. Just a few years ago, I was just an angry a-hole to everyone. Now I'm just an a-hole, but everyone else is as angry as I am. Yeah, so eventually, sometimes you're way ahead of the curve and then everybody just catches up to you. Off-Label. Yeah. Are you laughing at my just meltdown over Sparky. Gosh, it's so infuriating. But as things continue down the path, I think we're going to have more joining our good company. Off-Label Podcast right next door. Hey, Robert Rudd, what's going on? 4 months as a member. Thank you, Robert. We appreciate you. Save me from these feckless politicians. Man, I'm with you, Robert. What is it going to take for them to do their jobs? Like, it's not that difficult. I know this has been a repeat complaint throughout American history, but feels like we've got all of this power at the moment and they can't get anything done. And we have all of the energy being siphoned off by judges and the League of Women Voters. We need some serious reform and some new energy in Congress. Thank you, Robert. Baby Lewis. As far as McConnell with childhood polio, my sister-in-law had also, and she has been suffering incidents also from having childhood polio. Yeah, and that was McConnell, right? And I think they even put that in his press release. We read that this morning, and he said something like, that may have contributed to his pattern of falls, which I'm sorry your sister has suffered that, Baby Lewis. Hopefully she's doing well. Baby Lewis, look at my post above about McConnell. Nailed it. Thank you, Baby Lewis. Shout out to your sister. Hopefully she's doing well, and your family also. Hey, Tony Hay Munkets, if your baby's a boy, Robert would be cool. But if it's a girl, please don't name her Roberta. No, I would never do that to my sweet little angel baby. No. Roberta? Ugh. Yeah, no, it's not doesn't work. Robert, we could do like a Robert II, but we've got another name for a boy picked out. That's actually not Harambe, even though as much as I love that one, we have another one picked out, which I'm excited to share with you. See what you think. Slimmer Stubby, if it's a boy, we don't even know. It could be a girl. In which case, it could also be named Harambe. Slimmer Stubby, I was going to wash my car today, but I didn't want to see any sparkles. Yeah, exactly. It's just, everything's ruined. Everything that sparkles is ruined. And everything should be impeached. Any sparkles anywhere should just be impeached and removed and denaturalized and deported immediately. Thank you, Slimmer Stubby. Hey, Jim tells you what's going on. We're going to send a raid over your way. Have a beautiful stream this evening. And enjoy talking breaking news, politics, and fun at Jim Tells You channel. Hey, Sharpie Guy. What's up, Sharpie Guy? Hey, just for you and Alexis Gouveia today. Be blessed, y'all. Sharpie Guy, thank you. We appreciate the comment. And the donation over on Locals, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Friends, thank you so much for all of the great support today and for so many new members being invited into our beautiful Watcher fam. We, of course, will be back tomorrow morning with the members only stream, and then we'll be back tomorrow evening to get into the rest of the news on the day. And so we're looking forward to another great Jammin' Tuesday. Should have a lot of activity on Tuesday. There should be, I think Congress is back, bunch of hearings. We looked at the schedule this morning. Bunch of stuff out there. T. Davison, what's up on Locals? Tell us that the local bar associations are really just run by the judiciary, leading to judges being legally responsible for regulating themselves. It really is like that. It's a big kind of incestuous pipeline. Like the law schools create leftist lawyers. The leftist lawyers go into the bars. The bars will enforce leftism in the practice of law. Leftist lawyers will go into, like prosecutors' offices, which are giant bureaucracies. They'll go into government work, which are giant, kind of leftist bureaucracies in general. Then they leave. They go to leftist law firms. Many law firms are just ultra leftist. They've taken over everything. They've got the judges. They've got the bars. They've got like the ABA. They've got essentially everything. And they protect that ideological purity through and through. But we're starting to see some reaction. Like we got America First Legal, we've got, Article 3 Project, we've got some other good things that are developing. And I think we're also, making some moves. Part of what we want to do here with this show and our work here is to create also a public facing, kind of PR interpretation of the law and how it should actually work according to the Constitution with some America First principles. We have a lot of that on the left. We've got a lot of leftist media that are, again, in alignment with the ideological purity of the legal bar in general. So our goal is to push back in that space. And I hope that we're making some progress. Crazy KPM, I bet Lindsey Graham and his sister are interchangeable. Yeah, maybe, in terms of policy. Yeah, they very well may be. And Crazy KPM says, seems the court is already packed. It is packed with too many Birthright lovers. That's for sure. Thank you, Crazy KPM. Hey, and Wojo, I'm a retired mailman, and when we found out we were having a boy, I would tell people that he better look like the mailman. That's pretty funny. Yeah, that's pretty funny. He better look like the mailman. So I was a pool boy. I used to clean pools when I was in high school and in college. Really, in college was really kind of building pools, but I used to clean a lot of pools in high school. And I like that line, you know, something I could tell my wife, better look like the pool boy, even though I haven't cleaned pools in a lot of time, even though I wanted to go clean the reflecting pool, but never got that opportunity. I could have fixed that thing in no time. Friends, it's been a lovely stream. Let's see what we got cooking over on X. We got one from Winter Rocks, says good, period. Thank you for that. And Neuro D, who is mod extraordinaire over on X, sharing our link to our locals, watchingthewatchers.locals.com, to join our morning streams or join on YouTube, as you saw many of these members did here today. And we'll see you back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time for our members only morning stream. And then, of course, we'll be back at the regular time. I think actually one schedule change. We got a bunch of baby stuff going on tomorrow. So we've got, like, I think 2 appointments, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. So tomorrow's evening show should be 1 hour later, if I'm not mistaken, if I check the calendar. So rather than 5 p.m. Eastern time, 6 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, because we got to get back here. We're running around. But we got the baby coming soon, like 2 weeks maybe. Alexis says the 20th. We'll see if it's that early, but coming soon. So we got some stuff to attend to on that. And then, of course, we'll be here to unpack the Tuesday. Just thank you for adjusting the schedule. If you want to join us for that, 6 p.m. tomorrow night is the plan. Rick D, I knew I recognized her name. Williams, the judge who issued that order against Blanche, is the same judge that lawlessly attempted to use an obscure environmental law to block illegals going to Alligator Alley. Interesting. Yeah, I think we may have even covered her before, but same type of behavior, not a surprise at all. So very interesting. All right, so friends, once again, thank you for joining us. Thanks for all the generosity. Thanks for supporting our work and being here. Big thanks to our amazing mods and meme smiths who mod the fort down for us and keep things nice and orderly, including John. We got Muffin Rando. Of course, we got Donut Mind Me in the house. We got K-Bean. We got Neuro D. We got Janik and Dog Digger over on the Rumbles. We got Just Rhonda, Purveyor of Fine Emojis. Gigum Gigum, our meme smith extraordinaire, and Elliot Dockmaster in the house. And friends, thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing to our channel if you haven't done that already, so that we never miss you again. And then tonight, I wish you the most pleasant, peaceful, and beautiful rest you can possibly imagine, and invite you to come back tomorrow to join us again, 1 hour later, 6 p.m. Eastern time, to get into it again, because in order to do all of this appropriately, we are going to need to see you right back here, so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night. Sleep very well. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers. Truth on our side. Watching the watchers. We won't be denied. Watching the watchers. Eyes open wide. Fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. in the